Hey, soccer fans and Fire fans, this is Nick with the Feed the Fire podcast, bringing you yet another episode looking back at the Chicago Fire's last match, looking ahead at the Chicago Fire's next match, as well as sprinkling in a little bit of MLS news and content along the way. I want to thank everyone who listens on whatever podcast platform you're on. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed and liked and follows along on YouTube. Thank you to everyone who's written and messaged, to Carmen Don Allen, to Tio Luis, to Tom from Geneva, to Ryan Fish, to everyone who says hi at the games, my friend Israel, everyone at the fan tailgates, the supporters tailgates. This season has been so much fun from a podcasting perspective, from a fan perspective, and you guys just keep it going. It's so great. I got an awesome message on YouTube from Ulysses, loving the content, loving the episode. So thank you as well. It's been a lot of fun, but lately the results haven't been the way we've wanted them to be. And the Cincinnati match is just another example of that. And the Fire drop a home game 3-2 to Cincinnati. They give up an early goal to Evander in the 9th minute. Fortunately, Kuipers equalizes before halftime in the 31st off of a great play by Jonathan Bamba, who just leaves Miles Robinson in his dust. Robinson kind of overcommits, and Bamba is facing away from Robinson. Robinson gets too close to him. Bamba's able to flick the ball around and just kind of pivot around Robinson, play the most perfectly weighted pass into an onrushing Kuipers, who looks like he dekes the Cincy keeper, dekes Celentano with the right foot, and then kind of leans and chips it over him with the left foot. A great little move there to just keep Celentano leaning the wrong way as he gets the goal and levels things in the 31st. But alas, it was not to last. Kevin Danke scores for Cincinnati in the 42nd, and the Fire are down 2-1 at half. But the Fire have been in that situation before. We know the style of play. We know the confidence they have. And they are, unfortunately, the victim of Evander again in the 71st minute. Gutierrez does pull one back in the 85th after a penalty kick is awarded to the Fire. Great to see him taking the PKs with confidence and conviction. But that's all the Fire could muster. And again, they lose a home match. I don't think they won a home match this year, guys. They lose 3-2 to Cincinnati. So we're going to go over the stats on this in a second, as we usually do, and see if it kind of matches up with your eye test and what you were feeling when you watched the game. But one of the biggest things to come out of this was that initial goal that really did kind of set the tone, that I think put a little bit in the back of the head of the Chicago Fire players, definitely the fans of, oh no, here we go again. We saw it last season when the team would give up an early goal or give up a late goal or just not have the ability to finish a game, or when momentum would shift. Oh no, here it goes again. We're gonna give up the lead. We're gonna give up the draw and end up losing this match home or away. You kind of had that mentality amongst the players, and the players themselves recognized that. I think Herbers even made some quotes about it, if not others. But you didn't see that this year. You've seen, especially in that in the match against Miami, when things ebbed and flowed, the Fire kept the pressure up. You saw in their loss to Red Bull the week before that they were down 2-1, but they kept playing their style, their brand, their attack, their wing play, and they had opportunities in both of those games to win or equalize. So that mentality hasn't been back this season, but I think it reared its head just a little bit when you saw this goal from Evander. And the Fire were on the offensive when this happened. This was against the run of play. This was a counter-attacking goal. And go back and watch the replay, because what happens is the ball is in Cincinnati's boxer to the right of their keeper, to the Fire's left. The ball is played back for Mauricio Pineda to try and cycle it around again. However, as Pineda, who's a couple yards away from the ball, runs onto the ball, the referee, who's in the right position to be viewing the play, starts to back up and runs right into Mauricio Pineda. Their legs get tangled up. Pineda falls down, and there's a loose ball then in Cincinnati's defensive third. It's picked up by Evander, who is dropping back a little bit to help support the defense or to start a counterattack, and that's exactly what happens. And he takes it all the way down, rips a shot, And what's funny is you see some of the comments like, "Oh, what a chip shot by Evander," but no, actually, he tried to place it low and hard. It takes a deflection off of the defender, I forget who it was, and the ball just kind of loops up and over Brady's head. Brady is a little forward, trying to cut down the angle, looking to dive left or right, depending on where the shot's going to go and where the defender is forcing Evander's shot to go. But it takes that deflection and just ends up looping over Brady's head. Not much he could do as he was completely off balance then. And that was the goal. And that kind of gave us oh man, the Fire giving up these kind of goals again. Now, I was trying, and I want to focus on this play because a lot of people said, well, hey, that should be a drop ball. By rule, it does not have to be a drop ball and shouldn't have been a drop ball. The referee did not interfere with the ball itself. When the referee interferes with the ball or the ball hits the ref, whatever it is, then the referee can and oftentimes does allow a drop ball. But the referee is considered part of the field, part of the playing surface, part of the pitch, I guess. And so because he just gets in the way of a player, he does not have to, and I don't think under the laws is allowed to stop the game. And I tried looking up some of the IFAB laws to see if I could find anything specific. I don't think I looked hard enough because I didn't really find anything to that effect, or it's just kind of an understanding. But here's where I kind of disagree with it and where I agree with Chris Brady that officials need to look at this rule and see if there's some way to change it. To me, soccer compared to NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA has always been more of a common sense kind of a league. You look at the hyper technical ruling of the NFL. Is this a catch? Isn't this a catch? How high does the kick returner have to put his hand in order for it to be considered a fair catch signal? You have to have certain formations set. You got to cover up certain linemen with other. Like it's such a hyper technical rule book in the NFL, and then to an extent, Major League Baseball and the NBA. I always felt soccer was more of the common sense sport, right? Referees don't have to blow the whistle every time the ball goes out of bounds. In fact, I hated that growing up playing youth soccer, where if the ball's clearly rolled out of bounds for a team's throw in and they pick the ball up and go, the referee's like, wait for the whistle. I got to blow the ball dead. And then, no, you just go. Like it's a common sense type of approach to the game. And additionally, the referee is in charge of not only enforcing the laws of the game, and I will admit that, and this seem to follow the letter of the law. And especially, you saw a question asked of the Professional Referees Organization of Pro as to why it wasn't stopped and awarded a drop ball. And they said, because the referee didn't interfere with the ball, he just interfered with the player. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. They're not going to say the referee interfered with the player. But yeah, that was the situation, that the referee didn't interfere with the ball, so no drop ball needed to be awarded. But again, to me, soccer is the more common sense approach. The referees have to enforce the laws and ensure the laws are followed. But also, the referees need to ensure player safety, and they will blow a play dead in a second if they think there's any sort of head injury or contact to the head. They will stop play. They will bring trainers in. They will enforce players being sent off to proper sides of the field when they're subbing out. They're cracking down on delays of game and time wasting and all these things. But when a clear advantage is given to a team, in this case, FC Cincinnati and Evander, over the referee getting involved in the play, I think the referee needs to say, I am also in charge of ensuring the fairness of this match and the sporting merit, the sportsmanship of this match. And I'm going to blow it dead and either award a drop ball to Chicago and if they don't want to do that because Chicago, they were the last team to touch the ball, so they could get the drop ball in that sense. But if he doesn't even want to award them because it is in the attacking third, then do a contested drop ball at that point. And I would say the last option would be to award a drop ball to Cincinnati in that case. But it's better than allowing Cincinnati to just pick up the ball against the run of play and run down and score a goal. So maybe this is a bad, and we say this in the law all the time too, bad facts make bad case law. So in this case, if the referees associations or FIFA or whoever decide to change the law based on this particular one, maybe it's not the best fact pattern to change the law because it did result in a goal. And how many chances did the Fire have to stop the counterattack? And it was a lucky deflection, but it did result in a goal. So maybe that's why this is a bad example to change the law on. But I think if you are these refereeing organizations or oversight organizations, then you can say, well, this isn't a matter of the counterattack led to a goal. It's a matter of fair play here. And it clearly gave an advantage to the team that did not have possession of the ball and the team that was not affected by the referee. So I think there's something to be said for that. And in my MLS group chat, which oddly enough tonight is talking about the NFL draft, which is kind of fun to see. But everyone said, yeah, this is the law. This is the rule. This was followed, but it just doesn't seem right in this situation. I think a lot of Fire fans were left feeling the same way. And I think Cincinnati fans were feeling a little lucky about it. But to get into some of the actual numbers of the game and some of the stats of the game, I want to start off with a text I received from John Donovan. I didn't receive a segment from him this week, but he did send me some text. And this is what he said at the beginning of the game. Nick, this is the best starting lineup I've seen Chicago have in many, many years. I love the midfield. I'm all over it. And so here is that Chicago lineup that John said. And it was pretty much our choice starting 11. It's Brady in goal, Gutman and Glasgow as the outside backs, Turan and Elliott as the center backs. And I would say Glasgow would not be my first choice right back. However, that with Barroso out injured and some success against Miami with it. Maybe Jonathan Dean wasn't feeling 100% fit to be put in there. Obviously, Chase Gasper continues to be hurt. So that's one of the 11 positions that would not be my choice starter. But I think 3 of the 5 in this defense and keeper situation would be our first choice starters here. Across the middle, Brian Gutierrez, Sergio Orahel, and Mauricio Pineda. And I think you've got Gutierrez as your starting as your choice starting midfielder. I think Orahel and Pineda, maybe Orahel's your starting midfielder alongside Romney Kwame when he gets healthy and full to go in place of Pineda. But it's hard to argue Pineda's not a starting caliber player in this league, especially with everything he's done for the Fire and the ability to play in the midfield as well as along the back line. So Pineda, I don't think would be my first choice starter in the midfield. I'd rather see Gutierrez and Acosta and Kwame, but bringing in Orahel and Pineda, not a huge drop off the way we've seen them improve their game, especially Orahel throughout the course of the season. And then your attacking 3, Bamba on the left, Zinkernagel on the right, Kuipers in the center, and that's your choice attacking lineup there. So that's the lineup that the Chicago Fire were working with during this match, and they end up with 56% possession. So a better possession game at home this week around. 19 shots, but only 4 on goal. That ends up giving the Fire an expected goal of 2.1. So still a decent XG, but again, the Fire have to be scoring more than 2 goals, especially at home, the way the defense has been performing this year. They ended up with 9 block shots, 524 total passes at an 86% completion rate. This might be their best passing game. And again, we see the Chicago Fire being resilient and confident in the way they play this game, because they're down, but they dominate the first half. The second half was a little bit more even as far as possession and passing between both teams, but the Fire played their style of soccer and just couldn't convert. And that's the issue we've got to figure out either in the summer transfer window or something down the line, maybe tweaking a few different things or getting some different player combinations going. Maybe it's just a matter of getting the whole squad healthy, as everyone's joking around online. Oh, brand new training facility and everybody's hurt. So if they could just start converting a few more of these chances, then and exceeding that XG by 0.5 or 1, then the Fire would start adding points to their season total. 6 corners, so they finished the Frank. 10 total crosses, no offsides. All right. Oddly enough, the MLS.com stats say there were 0 aerial duels won by either team. I just think that is a mistake. Brady's credited with 5 saves. The defense had 3 clearances, 13 fouls, 1 yellow card for the Fire, 3 against Cincinnati, though. Not surprising. They play a very physical, in-your-face kind of style of defense at times, and will take those fouls, especially to preserve the lead late. So that is the statistical breakdown, and that did kind of seem to match up with my eye test a little bit. It's just too bad that the Fire couldn't put a few more of those passes together in the attacking third and up with that other goal. So the Fire again dropped 3-2 at home to Cincinnati. Now, I also, before we get into our preview of the upcoming match against Nashville, wanted to quickly address an article written by Matt Doyle over at MLSsoccer.com, where he grades every team's primary transfer window. And he says of the Chicago Fire, he gives them an A. I'm looking throughout, I don't think he gives anyone an A+. He gives a handful of teams A's and A minuses. So he gives Orlando City an A-. He gives Inter Miami an A, talking about getting Fafa Picault, trading Robert Taylor, moving on from Julian Gressel, getting Segovia as well. So, like, that's what he's talking about with Miami. He gives Cincinnati an A, getting Danke and Evander. Obviously, those are great moves. He gives Charlotte an A- for bringing in Wilfred Zaha, as well as Pep Biel on non-DP loan. Who else did he give an A to? I think that's it. Those are his A's. So here's what he says about the Chicago Fire. And everyone, obviously the Fire haven't been in the national picture very often lately, but those are the clubs that have been. Miami and Charlotte and Orlando City. So those are the clubs that the Chicago Fire are now in the echelon of at least player signings and roster construction, if I can make that argument. So here's what Doyle says about the Fire's offseason. Jonathan Bamba hasn't found his goal-scoring boots yet, but he's been electric. He and fellow winger Philip Zinkernagel, another winter arrival, have been a huge part of Chicago looking like an Audi MLS Cup's playoff team for the first time since I was a very young child, and a huge part of Hugo Kuiper's starting to justify the 8-figure outlay from ahead of the 2024 season. So yeah, they do look like a playoff team, and he's recognizing it. They're playing like it, but they got to start taking points at home if they're going to secure that playoff spot. Okay, Doyle continues. The back line isn't entirely fixed, but Jack Elliott's been as advertised, while a bunch of new kids, especially in midfield, have developed quickly into valuable players. About the only box they didn't check this winter was failing to add an MVP caliber player. But guess what? Like Charlotte, they kept the DP slot open to use this summer, and boy, would Kevin De Bruyne be a nice fit. Yeah, it certainly would be. And by the way, Ryan Tolmick over at goal.com put an article out on April 16th about the Fire reportedly making a move to sign Kevin De Bruyne, as we kind of talked about here a little bit. So if you want to get a little more details, you can go check that out as well. Something else just caught my eye in that article. Is that a guy in my group chat who's getting videos advertised on there? Sorry, I had to go take a look at something here. No, different podcaster, YouTuber, MLS personality than one of my buddies in the group chat. Anyway, moving on with Doyle's analysis of the Fire's transfer. Just a really impressive first window from new head coach, Chief Sporting Officer Greg Berhalter. Now, the best move, this is what Doyle considers his best move. My nature is to put Elliott here because I'm just like that, but Bamba's the type of playmaking winger who makes everyone better, and they got him on a bargain at reportedly $3.5 million. What a steal. I don't think there's anything I can disagree with. I would love to see that Kevin De Bruyne move have him come over to Chicago. I'd love to see him just feeding through balls to Bamba and Kuipers and Zinkernagel and whoever else. Maybe he can even get Tom Barlow scoring again. This would be an amazing addition. But yeah, I do think the Chicago Fire won the offseason. That A grade, well deserved. All right, let's look ahead to the Fire's next match this upcoming weekend against Nashville SC. They are traveling down to Nashville. Maybe they need to get away from Soldier Field for a minute, have one of these get right games, get your heads right, get your lineup right, and get everything else right. The only problem is they're not going to get the roster healthy. We saw Carlos Terán. It's reported that he has a serious leg injury, and who knows how long he will be out for. So that is going to be, again, a kind of patchwork back line a little bit. We'll see if Sam Rogers is back from injury and if he is up for the challenge of this Nashville attack, or if they end up dropping Mauricio Pineda back into a center back role and seeing if Kellen Acosta is healthy enough to go for an extended stint in the midfield. Jay Davila also has been getting some minutes as well, coming off the bench in the midfield, but I think he's still getting his MLS feet under him, and I don't know if an away game at Nashville is a place where we want to see him play extended minutes. Regardless, Nashville is the next opponent. They are currently sitting 6th in the Eastern Conference on 13 points, tied with Orlando, though they own the tiebreaker, and 1 point ahead of the Chicago Fire. After 9 games, they have 4 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. Goals for 12, goals against 1 for a differential of 1. They have a great home record. They are 3-1-1 at home and only 1-3-0 away. Meanwhile, the Chicago Fire at home are 0-1-3. 1 loss, 3 draws at home, but the Fire do have 3 away wins in 5 away attempts. So the Fire do have a better away record, and that is something that they can improve on, and I think they will improve on in this Nashville game. I'm not ready to go back into the, oh gosh, here we go again, Fire mode, but I do think the Fire are going to get back on track. I do look at this as a get-right game for them. Nashville is coming in with some mixed form. They had a 3-0 drubbing at Seattle this past weekend. Prior to that, they won a home game 2-1 against Salt Lake, and prior to that, they lost 2-1 in Charlotte. So they have had some cross-country travel to deal with. They've had some high-scoring, relatively high-scoring affairs to deal with. And their match after the Chicago game is an away trip to Atlanta. So if that is kind of becoming a fan rivalry thing, maybe Nashville starts to look ahead to that match and overlooks a Chicago team who is not in their best run of form either. And that could be something that the Fire could take advantage of. So who do the Fire have to look out for? We all know Hani Mukhtar, former league MVP, is still a playmaker for this team, but not having his best season thus far. Maybe it's because he turned 30 back in March and is on the wrong side of 30 for a professional athlete. He's played in all 9 games, started all 9 games, and gone average about 80 minutes a match, if not a little more. So 80, 85 minutes or so. So he's getting his minutes, but only 2 goals and 2 assists to show for it. However, he does lead the team in shots, shots on target, and key passes. So he is still a very, very central part of this Nashville team. Now, who's their other scoring threat? It's Sam Surridge. The former Premier League striker has 2 goals on the season and can absolutely light it up for Nashville if given the opportunity. So though he is a guy who has to be marked in the box at all times, I imagine Jack Elliott is going to know where Surridge is at any moment in time. At least that's how I would have coached it, saying you have to keep an eye on Surridge, and maybe we drop one of those D-mids in to kind of bracket him a little bit and make sure he doesn't have any room to take any shots from distance. And when he comes into the box, you got to put a body on him because he can win balls in the air and score with his head. Other goal scorers for Nashville, Ahmed Qasim has 2 goals as well. Josh Bauer, 2 goals. And then you've got Alex Moyle. You've got Jonathan Perez, Daniel Lovitz, who had a – go find Daniel Lovitz's goal. I didn't think this guy had it in him. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but, man, we used to give Daniel Lovitz so much crap back when I was doing the show with Mike G over on Sons of a Pitch. Mike now runs Toronto Sports Insider YouTube page. Go over, check him out. He's blowing up. He is going to get one of those crazy YouTube silver play buttons or platinum play button plaques or whatever. He just took off finding his niche in Toronto sports. But yeah, we used to give Daniel Lovitz so much crap because Berhalter loved him for the USMNT early on in his coaching tenure. And we're like, this guy's not an international level talent, but we came to realize that Berhalter needed just someone dependable who could run the system while he kind of got other things set, and then eventually phased out players like Daniel Lovitz and Will Trapp. But Lovitz is still playing fairly well for Nashville. That goal he had was a banger, and hopefully he does not have a repeat performance. He's kind of a little bit of their Andrew Gutman, a guy who, yes, the primary job is to defend, but has the freedom to push forward and work in with the offense. Also, Andy Nahar has a goal as well for Nashville on the year. Now, if you want to look at playmaking and assists, it's Lovitz and Edward Tagzeth, who each have 3 assists. Mukhtar and Walker Zimmerman each have 2 assists. Not sure about Zimmerman's health status after taking that boot to the face either last weekend or the week before. Hopefully he's feeling better. I do enjoy watching him play, but I don't know if they're in any rush to get him back on the field ahead of schedule, considering he took a cleat to the face. If you want to look at key passes, again, it's Mukhtar, Suraj, Tagseth, Moyle, and Nahar, all in double-digit key passes on the year. They have, as a team, 15, 18, 21 to 22 offside calls against them over nine games here. So they do like to push forward. They do like to stretch that back line. The Chicago Fire are going to have to be organized. Something that does worry me because of so many different players rotating. All it takes is, say, Amari Glasgow making a recovery run and dropping a few steps behind Jack Elliott, or Sam Rogers not wanting to get burned on a counterattack, staying a few steps behind Jack Elliott to throw the entire offside trap or the entire line, the back line, that formation off. So that's something we've got to keep an eye on from a defensive perspective, because Nashville does like to stretch that back line. However, we talked about in the last episode, Chris Brady has been coming not just off his line more, but out of the box a lot more than he has in the past. And so he's playing a little bit of sweeper keeper we've seen thus far. Maybe not the best sweeper keeper, because there have been a lot of nervy moments. Fortunately, he hasn't given up any goals doing what he's been doing, but that is something, again, like I said, keep an eye on. Hopefully Brady can cover and feels a little bit more confident in coming off his line and out of the box like that. Regardless, I still think the Fire do a very good job in this match. I still think their offensive talent is going to outpace Nashville's defensive lineup, and they should be able to outscore Nashville. But given that it's an away game, given that they've got some defensive issues, and they're probably going to want to stay tight and look for a little bit more on the counterattack, I'm going to give the Fire a 2-1 advantage in this game, and they get back in the win column after traveling south to Nashville. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in for the latest episode of the Feed the Fire podcast here on Glass House Soccer. Again, I'm your host, Nick. I hope everyone had a wonderful Easter weekend. I know mine was full of faith, family, and food, just the way that I think every holiday should be. We spent the weekend in church. We grilled out at my dad's house after the midnight service for Easter, proclaiming the resurrection. Then took a quick sleep, drove into my aunt's house where my uncle had roasted a leg of lamb and lamb chops, and we just ate and we drank and we had a good time. And just like I said, faith, family, and food, that's the holidays for me. I hope everyone else got to enjoy their Easter weekend. If you don't celebrate, I hope you got to enjoy a nice weekend. There was a little bit of rain, but hopefully the weather is getting better for you. Now that Easter is over, it's my unofficial start to yard work season as well. So I got to get out and do some yard work, cut some grass, get some guys to come in and rip out some trees and branches that have fallen down and fix my fence. Yeah, anybody want to come fix a fence? Let me know. With that, Fire fans, I will leave you to the rest of your day. Sorry about a little late scheduling of the podcast, but I appreciate you tuning in each and every week and helping us grow the show. And as always, let's go Fire.